but I'm encouraging you to look beyond the usual suspects of cutting, because this goes beyond cutting, you know, like couponing or price shopping for food.
We've never used coupons.
Yeah, we've never used them.
We don't use them.
And so I'm just giving you these kind of out of the box kind of ideas, not just so you would do those, but just to get you thinking about, gee, I hadn't thought of that, you know, and how many other ways are there to actually save money. And that's the idea behind making lists. And I was just talking about this in a different video, and this is why it's important to listen to different perspectives. I'm not trying to sound like I'm tooting our own horn, but it really is important to hear other people's perspectives, because there's so much mainstream out there and so much delay your life, that unfortunately that just puts you in the path of doing things in such a way where you don't have as much control, which is what living intentionally is all about, over the inflation concerns. But even if you're still on, you know, working a job or maybe building a business or something and aren't living as intentionally as you'd like, you can still do some of these things, and therefore, you know, alleviate some of the concerns over inflation, which they're saying is going to still be ramping up for quite some time, and it's going to be with us.
What are you doing?
The plumbing is plugged.
Yeah, that's probably the bathtub pipe.
Never worry about inflation again. 3 easy steps. And so one of the things that you can do is start making lists of how you can save money on different things every month. And for example, when I had a house with a pool, I noticed that every time it rained, the water was just washing up and dispersing. And I was also noticing that the pool water would evaporate, and in order to refill it, it would cost big bucks at the end of the month. So every little thing that you can do like that, you can start noticing and making lists and taking note. And I ended up just putting an extension on my rain gutter and I extended it into the pool, and every time it rained, it just filled the pool automatically. I didn't have to do a thing, and it didn't cost me a cent every month like it was before, trying to keep the pool filled. And I had a friend come over once, and he looked at it and he goes, "Hey, does that work?" Yeah, it works. So start making a list of different ways. You might not have a pool, but the point is, you know, living intentionally dictates that you know, have enough time on your hands. People wonder, well, what are you going to do? Well, you can reflect and start making lists about ways that you can start saving money, and that's the beginning. And it isn't just all the, I mean, there's always the usual suspects that you hear, you know, on other channels. But I made the example of the pool just to show you that it's not just the usual suspects, like how can you save money on rent, food, entertainment, and you know, utility bills and all this kind of thing. Those are all the things that people always talk about, but and they're great things to save money on. But you can, you know. Didn't
your mom used to turn off her hot water heater or something at night?
You can do things like turn your hot water heater off
a bit of money
at night. But I'll tell you another thing I noticed in when we were in Europe, that here's another tip for you. In Europe, they use, and I thought about this when we were in America, but they weren't very common back then. You didn't see smaller water heaters. And I'll tell you though, as an American, there's a certain psychology behind going to a smaller water heater. You just have this idea that it's like you grew up with this, I don't know, what was it, 50-gallon, 100-gallon water heater, and you're thinking, okay, I'm supposed to get like this tiny water heater now. And there's this feeling, it's emotional. It's like, I don't know about this.
You're only one or two people.
Every other house I go in has the same size. Why should I, you know? But when you go to Europe, everybody has a little one. It's like, oh gee, if I use a little water heater, I'll blend in here. And so we're kind of subject to, sometimes we subject ourselves to peer pressure. you know?
Definitely.
And yeah, if you've got a big family, yeah, you want a big water heater, but when you retire early lifestyle, if you're 1 or 2 people, you can easily go to a 30-gallon. And I was surprised when we were in Europe how long of a shower I could take on a little 30-gallon hot water heater. I mean, yeah, you can do things like turn it off, but hey, if it's burnt out and you're replacing it, time to get a little one. All right, so in Europe, they go beyond just having a smaller water heater like you saw in the picture. They also have a light switch like this, exclusively for the water heater. And so they make it easy. You know, you just go in the bathroom and just turn it on and turn it off. What I would do is I would put a timer on it, timer switch. And so what I'm doing here is I'm giving you some examples of solutions that are like inherently built in, so that you don't have to remember, to turn the hot water heater off at night or this kind of thing. So they just are intrinsically built in to our lifestyle, to where we're just still maintaining our standard of living, and yet we're just consuming. We're not wasting. So that's what it comes down to. Because when you have a hot water heater on all day long, heating 50 gallons, that you're only going to use 10 gallons, I mean, that's a waste. And that example translates into all other areas of our expenses. And I was going to give you another tip. Now, you can do things like replace your light bulbs, replace the incandescent light bulbs, and put those, those little 7-watt money-saving bulbs. And those are a great thing to do. But here's another thing that I have talked about. You may not have a house that you can put floor to ceiling windows all the way across like we had in the apartment in Cuenca, but you can do little things like open up a place by installing an additional window. In our house in the States, I was going to put one of these, it's not a skylight, but it's a kind of tubular cylindrical skylight that you can actually install yourself. You would just, I installed my own wood stove, and you can install these.
Chimney, the whole chimney and
I
everything.
did the chimney and everything on the wood stove. That's part of that thing that you want to be doing when you're younger. When you wait for your retire at 67, I mean, a lot of us can still do all those things, but we may not want to do them. I had a friend that was doing these things. He was 70, but he he lost his balance, fell off the roof. He was in good shape. He rode a bicycle and all that, but stuff happens, But my point is, when you're living intentionally, you do it sooner, and you can start doing it by making lists, little tips there. All right, so what I'm doing with these examples is I'm just encouraging you to think outside of the box in ways that we can still maintain our standard of living and yet not consume or spend as much. Like my example with the pool water, I didn't stop filling my pool. I just did it at no cost. I installed a extension to the rain gutter that was only a one-time expense, and then it just did it automatically. I didn't have to remember to do anything. I had an abundance of water. One thing leads to another. Once I started getting more water than I could use, because in the South we got huge rainstorms, and I noticed that the pool got filled all the way to the top and it was overflowing. I started thinking about how I could just pump that water out of the pool and put it into barrels in order to water my gardens during droughts. So one thing leads to another. Once you have this huge abundance it just comes from nature, wherever it comes from, you're not lowering your standard of living, which is the problem I have with the way a lot of the other channels want you to cut your consumption. That is to say, cut your standard of living. In these kinds of solutions, I'm not saying that they're the end-all be-all to your end of your worries about inflation in and of themselves, the examples. What I'm saying is I'm giving you examples to get you thinking about in which direction to think about the way that we do things, and setting them up in such a way that we are not only not cutting our standard of living, but in most cases actually have an overflowing abundance of standard of living, and yet our expenses go down. You see the difference there? That's the difference. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about smart frugal. All right. The second thing you could do is try to change your schedule around a little bit what this does is it breaks up the habitual, we run our lives so much as a habit. Okay, so you do something different outside of your normal schedule to get your mind off of things and not worry, because we hear all the bad news on the media and we see it when we go to the store, and so what we want to do is we want to be focusing on solutions. And in order to break out of patterns, we put ourselves in patterns where we do things habitually, and then we can also not unknowingly habitually worry and going into an unhealthy direction with our emotions, giving into fear. And so we don't want to give into fear. We want to have that confidence that we do have control and we can do things and we can alleviate the stress, and worry of inflation. And so that was doing things outside of your normal schedule. And so that would mean things like, that maybe you haven't done, like perhaps take a walk to the park or take a bike ride, or simply go into your backyard and plant something that you find enjoyable. Okay, and the third thing is helping and assisting others in need. And we, at the time, over 20 years ago, we started a whole website to help people with troubled marriages, and it's called heavenministries.com. And it doesn't have to be something that you make money at, but it helps you to get outside of yourself and your own challenges and problems in life. And it's very fulfilling to help others in any way that you can. And it doesn't have to be that way. It could just be to be a giver, not a taker in life, and to help others if you see an opportunity to be able to use your knowledge, your experience, or something else that you have in abundance that you can help others. And this gets your worries off of your own situation. That is actually one of the great pieces of wisdom that are in ancient writings in the Bible that the apostles wrote about, is that when you are helping others, you're actually helping yourself. No matter how small, you're helping them and you're helping yourself. So those are the three ways that you can not worry about inflation again. So I hope you've got something out of that video, and let us know your thoughts. Thanks for coming to the channel, and have a wonderful day.